Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat at welcome po sa ating training on fruit wine processing. Ito po ay bahagi ng ating programang Rebooting Agriculture in the New Normal Web Pressure Courses. AGPS Talk, pagkain at pangkabuhayan sa panahon ng pandemya. Ito po ay hatid sa atin ng College of Agriculture and Food Science, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Ako po ang inyong magiging punong tagapagsanay, Raypre A. Lascano, ng Institute of Food Science and Technology, CAPS UPLB. Narito po ang ating mga tatalakayin ngayong araw. Una po, we will have a short lecture on alcoholic beverages and alcohol fermentation at magkakaroon po tayo ng discussion on the steps and techniques in wine fermentation. Ang ating pong unang tatalakayin ay ang mga alcoholic drinks o isa sa mga pinaka-highly consumed na fermented products sa buong mundo. Ang una po sa mga alcoholic beverages na ating tatalakayin ay ang wine. So, wine is defined as a product made by normal alcoholic fermentation of juice from sound, ripe fruits containing 8 to 18% alcohol by volume. So, these are the different types of wine. First, we have the dry wines. So, ito po yung mga klase ng alak na hindi siya ganoong katamis at mas humahagod po yung alcohol sa ating mga lalamunan. Sunod naman po yung sweet wines. Ito po yung mga alak na matatamis. Kabilang po dito yung ating mga party wines. And we also have the sparkling wines, kagaya po ng champagne, kung saan obvious po na bumubula-bula pa po siya due to the added carbon dioxide in the process. And we also have the fortified sweet wines. Ito naman po yung mga klase ng alak na dinadagdagan natin ng asukal at the end of fermentation para po mas tumamis siya. And we have the fortified dry wine kung saan after fermentation, nilalagay po tayo ng additional food grade alcohol para mas tumapang po yung ating wine. Ang susunod naman po na alcoholic beverage ay ang beer. So beer is defined as a beverage obtained from alcoholic fermentation of malted barley with or without other starchy materials like rice or corn, and with the addition of hops. So ito po yung hops, yeast, and water. So yung hops po yung nagbibigay ng unique characteristic ng ating beer na medyo may pait at yung kakaiba niyang mouthfeel. Ang susunod naman po na classification ng ating mga alcoholic beverages ay ito naman po mga alcohol distillates or distilled spirits. So bukod po doon sa proseso ng fermentation, meron din po silang distillation step at the end of the process. So, kabilang po sa mga products nito, ang mga sumusunod. So, unang-una po yung ating rum, which is made from the sugarcane products. Then, we have whiskey, so from grains such as rye, corn, barley, and wheat. And actually, kabilang po sa whiskey yung isa sa pinakamatapang na alcoholic beverages na meron tayo, which contains 96% alcohol. So, ganun siya katapang. We also have yung isa sa mga pinakakaraniwang alcohol distillate, brandy, which is made from distilling fruit wines. We also have gin, which is yung pong pinakasikat naman po na hinahaluan nating mga Pinoy, di ba? So, it's primarily made from juniper berries or the distillation of distilled spirits. And sikat na sikat po, lalo-lalo na sa ating mga probinsya, ito pong lambanog, which is made from distilling tuba or fermented palm sap. Ang susunod naman po natin mga alcoholic beverages ay tinatawag po nating cordials or liquors. So this is product obtained by mixing or distilling neutral spirits, brandy, gin, or other distilled spirits na hinahaluan din po natin ng fruits, flowers, plant juices, or other flavoring materials or extracts. So, ito po yung mga karaniwang ginagawa natin sa inuman, So, kabilang po dito yung mga tinatawag nating margarita, gaya po na nasa picture. Kabilang din po dito yung shembot. Kabilang po yung mga gin and others. So, gin and mga fruit juices po natin. So, tinatawag po natin sila mga cordials. Basta po may mga halo. And, wag po natin kakalimutan that sugar is added at not less than 2 to 5% by weight. So, relatively matamis po yung ating mga cordial. Ngayon, pag-uusapan naman po natin kung paano nga ba nabubuo yung alcohol during fermentation. So, how is alcohol formed? Alcohol production involves anaerobic breakdown of sugar to ethanol and carbon dioxide using brewer's yeast or distillery yeast. Nasa baba po yung ating simplified chemical reaction wherein from the glucose moiety of our sugar, magkakaroon po tayo ng ethanol at the end of the process. So again, ito po ay nangyayari kapag anaerobic yung condition or kapag inalis po natin yung oxygen during fermentation. So mga sumusunod po, yung mga wine yeast na pwede po natin gamitin in alcohol fermentation. Tandaan po na kapamilya din po sila ng ating baker's yeast or yung pong yeast na ginagamit natin sa paggawa ng mga tinapay. So, unang-una po sa listahan, si Saccharomyces ellipsoideus, meron din po si Saccharomyces beticus, Saccharomyces chevalieri, Saccharomyces schellsii at Saccharomyces fermentati. Meron din naman po tayo yung Saccharomyces bayanus na ginagamit po for Philippine wine production. Ang sunod po natin pag-uusapan ay yung tinatawag po natin na fruit mass. So, the fruit mass is the formulated mixture of diluted fruit extract and sugar with or without the addition of acidulant and chemical preservative. So, ito po yung ating example ng fruit mass na pinipare po natin sa laboratory. So, ito po ay galing sa diluted mango juice. Yan. So, kailangan po, meron po tayong pH at 3.5 to 4.5 para po maiwasan po natin ang pagkasira ng ating fruit mass habang pinaperment po siya. And meron po dapat tayong initial sugar content expressed in degree breaks na 20 for dry wine and 25 for sweet wine. So tandaan po natin yung sugar, siya po yung gagamitin ng ating yeast para i-convert po into alcohol and carbon dioxide during fermentation. Ang susunod naman po ay ang mga materyales na kakailanganin natin in wine fermentation. So, materials during mass preparation. So, kailangan po natin ng mixing tank or mixing vessel. So, ideally po ay gawa po siya sa stainless steel material. Kailangan din po natin ng stirring paddle na panghalo. Kailangan din po natin ng basin or mixing bowl na lalagyan po ng ating mga sinukat na amount ng asukal at iba pang ingredients. Kailangan din po natin ng weighing scale. So, ang ating pong pagsusukat sa paggawa po ng alak ay nakadepende po sa timbang. So, I suggest din po na digital po yung ating kuhanin para po mas eksakto po yung ating mga gagamitin ng mga ingredients. Kailangan din po natin ng fruit crusher, pulper or blender para po mas efficient po yung ating juice extraction. Kailangan din po natin ng embudo or funnel para po sa paglilipat ng ating mga liquids sa ating mga fermentation vessels. Ito naman po ang mga materials needed during fermentation. So, kailangan po natin ng fermentation container or vat or jug, and ideally gawa po sana ito sa glass kasi ang glass po is non-reactive to the fermenting wine, or any container na ang material po is non-reactive sa ating pong fermenting wine. So, also we need alcohol lamp or inoculating wire loop. So, kakailanganin naman po natin ito to manage yung ating pong mga wine culture or wine yeast cultures. So, kailangan din po natin ng fermentation airlock or bank to keep the fermentation vessel in anaerobic condition. So, ito pong mga attachment na ganito is hinahayaan po niya lumabas ang excess carbon dioxide from our mixture while not permitting oxygen to enter our fermentation vessel. In such a way, ma-maintain po natin yung anaerobic condition na tinatawag, which is a prerequisite para po magkaroon tayo ng alcohol. Naman po mga materials needed during harvesting and aging. So, we need aging tank, vat, or jug. So, again, kagaya po nung atin sa fermentation setup, kailangan din po yung ating mga container na ito is non-reactive to our fermenting wine or aging wine. So, ang iba po ang ginagamit is stainless steel tanks para po dun sa, lalo na po para sa mga clear wines. And in some cases po, gumagamit naman tayo ng mga wooden barrels para naman po ito karaniwang ginagamit sa mga red wines. Kailangan din po natin ng filtration devices para po maksala natin yung mga impurities ng ating wine. We need also the siphon hose to transfer yung pong ating clear wine into another containers. Ito naman po ang mga materials needed during bottling and packaging. So, unang-una, kailangan po natin ng mga wine bottles. Ideally, from glass po, o gawa po sa glass yung ating wine bottles. So, it adds the aesthetic as well as protection na rin po ng ating wine. Kailangan din po natin ng closures. So, pwede po tayong gumamit ng cork or aluminum cap and capsules which are heat shrink. Kailangan din po natin ng air blower, lalong-lalo na po kapag gagamit kayo ng capsule na heat shrink to fully cover your bottled wine. And kailangan naman po natin ng corker in case gagamit po tayo ng cork as closure for our wine bottles. Ito naman po yung ating mga basic test equipment na kakailanganin to monitor yung pong ating wine fermentation. So, kailangan po natin ng pH meter. So, tandaan po natin na kailangan po ma-maintain natin during fermentation yung pH na 3.5 to 4.5. Kasi at that pH po, safe po sa spoilage yung ating wine. At the same time, kaya di po mabuhay noong ating yeast to perform the fermentation. We also need hand refractometer or yung pong device na panukat naman po ng sugar content. So, meron din pong digital version ito, gaya po ipapakita natin mamaya. Kailangan din po natin ng ebullimeter or hydrometer for the measurement of alcohol content ng pong ating wine. So, ito po kailangan natin lalong-lalo na bago po tayo mag-bottle ng ating harvested wine para po sure tayo na na-reach po ng ating fermentation yung required po natin na alcohol content which is between 8 to 18%. Kailangan din po natin ng thermometer para po sa pasteurization po ng ating starter. So, these are the steps in wine making. So, ating mo gagamitin na example is yung preparation of mango wine. So, first, we need to prepare the fruit mass. And preparation of fruit mass is the most critical stage in wine making. So, the fruit to be used must be suitable for wine making. So, ito po yung mga established po na protocol na meron tayo sa preparation of mass for wine. So, meron na po tayong protocol para sa atis, sa dalandan. Meron na rin po tayo sa passion fruit, guyabano, mangga, pineapple, and ito pong duhat. Technically speaking po, lahat naman po ng prutas na merong right amount of sugar and acid ay pwede po natin gamitin sa paggagawa ng alak. Kailangan lang po is tama po yung ating timpla o yung preparation ng mass para po maging successful yung ating fermentation ng wine. So, kabilang po doon sa preparation ng ating fruits is yung tamang paghuhugas, tamang paghihiwa, and tamang pagkuha po ng flesh. Sa ating pong case, mangga po yung ating ginamit, for example. So, kailangan po natin siyang hugasan, hiwain, at kailangan po natin ikuhanin yung laman noong mangga. Sa iba pong klase ng prutas, iba-iba po tayo na preparation. Basta ang mahalaga po, makuha po natin yung flesh o yung laman at makuha natin yung extract po. After po ng basic preparation of fruit, kailangan po natin makuha yung juice ng ating fruit. So, juice extraction, again, it depends on the type of fruit. For our example na mango, ito po ang ating gagawin. So, first, we need to weigh the flesh na nakuha natin. And we will dilute it with the right amount of water. So, ang ating pong ginagamit para sa ating mango wine or mass for the mango wine is 1:2 or 3. So, sabihin po noon, 1 part of flesh, pwede pong 2 parts or 3 parts of water. Sa case po natin dito is 3 parts of water po ang ginamit namin. And after po natin matimbang ang tamang sukat ng tubig na gagamitin, i-homogenize po natin yung ating mixture using a blender. So, after po ng juice extraction, we need to adjust the sugar content of the mass. So, tandaan po natin that sugar is the basic ingredient of all wine mass and it is needed by the yeast to convert into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Generally po, refined sugar po yung ginagamit natin. Although, pwede po tayo gumamit ng iba't ibang klaseng asukal. Pero, mas sinasuggest po natin yung refined sugar. Maganda po ang performance ng ating wine yeast sa refined sugar. So, for starting sugar content, natatargeting po natin. For dry wine, kailangan po natin ng 20 degree Brix. And for sweet wine, kailangan po natin ng 25 degree Brix. So, ang degree Brix po, ibig sabihin po niyan, grams of sugar per 100 grams of mixture. Upang maiwasan po natin yung tansya-tansya, para malaman po kung sakto na yung sugar na nailagay natin sa ating fruit mask, gumagamit po tayo nitong tinatawag natin na Pearson square. So, ito po ay method of determining or calculating the almost exact amount of sugar needed to adjust the sugar content of your fruit mask. So, ang technique po sa kanya, magdodrawing lang po tayo ng square and we will label the square accordingly, gaya po na nasa figure natin, where A is the initial Brix of the mask, B is the Brix of the sugar which is automatically assigned to 100, C is the target Brix of mask na 25 kapag po sweet wine, 20 naman kapag dry wine, D is simply the difference of B and C, E is C minus A, and F naman po na wala sa box is yung pong ating initial timbang po ng ating fruit mask. So the total amount of sugar needed is kinukumpit po natin gamit yung formula na F times the ratio of E and D. So para mas maintindihan natin kung paano ginagamit yung Pearson square, magkaroon po tayo ng sample calculation. So determine the amount of sugar needed to prepare a sweet wine from a 4,000 grams of fruit extract with initial sugar content of 4 degree Brix. So, starting sugar content of the mask, tandaan po natin that for dry wine, we need 20 degree Brix, and for sweet wine, 25 degree Brix. So again, determine the amount of sugar needed to prepare a sweet wine from 4,000 grams of fruit extract with initial sugar content of 4 degree Brix. And to compute that, so i-input lang po natin yung ating data dito sa ating Pearson square. So remember that A is the initial Brix of the mask, therefore yung 4, ilagay po natin dito. And then B is automatically assigned to 100, therefore B is 100. Then the target Brix of the mask na kailangan po natin is 25 since ang gagawin po natin is sweet wine. And remember, letter D is simply the difference of B and C, therefore 100 minus 25, we have 75 here. And letter E is simply the difference of C and A, so 25 minus 4, we have 21 here. So for the amount of sugar needed, kailangan po natin i-multiply po ang ating F or the initial timbang ng ating mass, which is 4,000 grams, to the ratio of E and D. So to do that, we will need to multiply 4,000 times 21 over 75. We should have at 1,120 grams of sugar. So, tama po ba ang compute natin? So, kung tama po atin ang compute, okay. Yun po yung ating ilalagay na amount of sugar doon sa ating initial mask. So, para naman po doon sa ating example na mango fruit mask, so, natimbang po natin yung initial mass of the mask as 1,894 grams. And para naman po sa initial sugar content, gumamit po kami ni Professor Ancheta na digital refractometer. At ang nakuha po namin ay 3.8 degree Brix. Yan po, 3.8 degree Brix. So, pwede po kayong kumuha din ng digital refractometer kung mahirap po kayong gumamit ng hand refractometer. So, ang aming pong gagawin na type of wine is dry wine. So, gamit po yung Pearson square, nakapag-compute po kami ng the needed amount of sugar as 502 grams of sugar. So, ihalo lang po natin yung ating sugar doon sa ating fruit mask. So, po kayo mag-alala na parang, sir, ang dami naman parang sugar na nilalagay sa ating wine. Don't worry po, this will be converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide during the process. And after putting in the sugar, you just need to mix the mask well. So, kailangan po is evenly distributed po yung ating sugar doon sa ating mixture. So, after po natin ma-adjust yung sugar content ng ating fruit mask, we need to adjust also the acidity. So, adjustment of the acidity is essential to give good keeping properties and resistance to bacterial attacks, to balance the fermentation and production of flavor during maturation. So, kailangan po tayong gumamit ng dominant acid of the fruit. So, pwede po malic acid, citric acid, or tartaric acid. Ang nakalagay po dito is citric acid because citric acid is widely distributed in nature and it can be used po in a variety of fruits. And gagawin po natin yung addition of acid kapag po mas mataas sa 4.5 yung ating pH. So, ideal pH po is 3.5 to 4.5 para po sa ating fruit mass. So, in our example po, we will determine first the initial pH of our fruit mass. So, kumuha lang po kami ng small portion of the fruit mass and then we will use a calibrated pH pen to determine the pH. And as you can all see, it is above the required range for our fruit wine. And therefore, mag-a-adjust po tayo by adding the predominating acid. So, in this case, gumamit po kami ng citric acid. So, add the citric acid gradually doon sa ating fruit mass and then followed by mixing. And after that, we will check again if pasok na siya sa range. And yes, it is within the 3.5 to 4.5 range of acidity. So, once okay na po yung ating sugar content and acidity of our fruit mass, we need to prepare po the starter. So, ano po ba yung starter? Starter is a portion, usually around 10% of the total volume of the mass, where the yeast will be initially grown. So, this will allow the yeast to adapt to a new stressful environment and to effectively multiply and ferment the mass. So, yung po kasi increased amount of sugar at saka po acidity, actually, it is a stress po doon sa ating wine yeast, which is also a microorganism. So, kailangan po na muna nila ng time to adjust to that new environment and magpadami to multiply, to have an initial multiplication at such environment. So, this step is optional if you're going to use ready-to-use na mga wine yeast po. So, ito po yung mga instant na dinadagdagan na powder. Powdered form po ng ating wine yeast doon sa ating fruit mass. Yan. So, to prepare the fruit mass, we need to separate 10% of the total volume of the mass and place it into an Erlenmeyer flask. And then we will cover the flask with a cotton plug. So, yan po. Na-prepare po natin yung ating starter. So, after that, we need to pasteurize the separated mass at 85 degrees Celsius per 30 minutes. So, para lang po mapatay po natin yung mga contaminating microorganism doon sa ating separated mass. Kailangan po natin itong step na to para po ang mag-dominate po doon sa setup is yung ating wine yeast. So, afterwards, cool immediately to around 40 degrees Celsius. So, meanwhile, habang ating po pinapalamig yung ating mass setup, we need to pre-sterilize the fermentation jars using a sodium metabisulfite solution. So, yung po nasa video po natin is 5 ml of 10% of the metabisulfite solution per 4 liters of the fruit mass. So, yun po yung ating ratio. So, we need to shake well to evenly distribute the sodium metabisulfite doon po sa ating container. And then, you will transfer the remaining mass into the pre-sterilized fermentation vessel. So, okay lang po yan na meron pong sodium metabisulfite doon sa ating vessel. It will just evolve into sulfur dioxide, which is the effective form of the solution. So, the sulfur dioxide will disinfect the mixture without the need to heat the whole batch of the fruit mass. And we will need to cover the vessel with a cotton plug to complete the process. So, para saan po ba yung ating chemical treatment or using the sodium metabisulfite? So, ito po yung ginagamit natin sa winemaking because it has the following advantages. First, it promotes the glycerol formation during fermentation. So, ano po ba, para saan po ba yung glycerol? So, it gives this good mouth feel of the wine and it also gives this winey characteristics po ng ating wine. Also, the sodium metabisulfite prevents enzymatic browning, which equates to preservation of color of the fruit extract. So, hindi po talaga magkakaroon ng excessive browning or excessive discoloration yung ating wine. It also helps in preserving vitamin C in your fruit wines. However, there are also disadvantages if used out of control. So it could be harmful if added in extremely large volumes. And it can also destroy the vitamin B present in your fruit wine. So aside of using chemical sterilant to disinfect po yung ating fruit mass, we can also boil the fruit mass. So it has the following advantages. First, it can facilitate juice extraction, and just like the normal pasteurization, it can reduce the number of the contaminating microorganisms. However, there are several disadvantages of boiling the fruit mass. First, delicate flavor and aroma may be dissipated in the steam. So, sasama po dun sa aso sa steam yung ating flavor, and hence, mababawasan po yung ating flavor para sa wine. It can also contribute to cook flavor of the wine, lalo-lalo na kapag excessive heat po yun apply natin. And also, the pectinase, which is an enzyme for clarification of wine, is inactivated. And hence, may possibility po na maging, or mahirap pala palinawin po yung ating fruit wine after fermentation. So, for the preparation of a starter, so ito po, after po na mapalamig natin yung ating vessel, kailangan po nating ilipat yung ating starter culture into the pasteurized fruit mass. So once cooled to around 40 degrees Celsius, inoculate the starter with pure culture of Saccharomyces ellipsoideus. So in our video, in an aseptic condition, we pour a small portion of the fruit mass, pasteurized fruit mass, into the media slant containing the pure culture of yeast. So aseptic technique po tayo, using wire loop. Napanalig po yung wire loop. Dip the wire loop and scrape up the yeast from the slant. So, kakayuri lang po natin. Kayod. And yan. Nakuha na po natin, o humalo na po doon sa ating nilagay na fruit mass yung ating wine yeast. And then, transfer back the mass with the yeast into the rest of the prepared mass. Yan. Okay, so aseptic po tayo. Cover the flask and let it incubate for 24 hours at room temperature. So, yung pong 24 hours, after that, nakita po natin na ready na po yung ating yeast to be transferred to the whole batch of the fruit mass.
24 hours later.
So, yan. After 24 hours, papansin po natin may bula-bula na sa ibabaw po ng ating starter. So, that means the yeast has already been activated. So, after 24 hours, starter is already activated. To transfer the starter into the rest of the batch of the mass. So, lagi po natin, give it a quick swirl to evenly distribute the yeast cells into the starter. And then, in a clean environment, we just need to transfer the starter into the rest of the fruit mass. Okay? So, sir, pakisuyo po. Yes, thank you. So, pansin po natin, diretso po natin ibubuhos yung starter into the mass. Huwag na po natin pasayalin sa gilid para po hindi doon dumikit yung ating yeast. As much as possible, diretso po siya doon sa ating fruit mass. Okay, slightly cover. And, thank you, sir. Kindly give it a quick swirl, sir. Okay, quick swirl. Thank you, sir. To evenly distribute the yeast cells into the rest of the mass. And cover the fermentation vessel with cotton plug. So, after 2 to 3 days of initial fermentation, so replace po natin the cotton plug with fermentation lock or bang. So, bakit kailangan po natin ng 2 to 3 days of initial fermentation? So, yung initial stage po ng fermentation, kailangan partially aerobic po yung ating gagawin. So, the aerobic condition enhances or permits rapid multiplication of the yeast in our setup. So, para mas dumami agad yung ating yeast. And then, after that period, we will replace the cotton plug with fermentation lock. So, kapag pinatampo natin ang fermentation lock, the yeast cells will now be forced to undergo fermentation for survival. So, instead of the normal respiration of the yeast cells will now convert sugar into ethanol and carbon dioxide. And the produced ethanol, yun po yung ating wine. So the fermentation of fruit mass depends on the type of fruit that we use. So we can perform pulp fermentation, which wherein the pulp or sometimes including the peel of the fruit is included in the first stage of fermentation to extract the color, particularly important in red wines. Also, in juice fermentation naman, only the extracted juice is fermented, filtering out the pulp and peel. So this is normally applied to white wines. So ferment the wine for about 3 to 4 weeks or until the bubbling ceases. So dito po natin mapapansin sa ating fermentation lock yung bubbling. So bubbling means carbon dioxide is still produced by the yeast. So ibig sabihin, active pa rin sila. So if the bubbling ceases, so that means possible patay na din yung ating mga yeast and the fermentation has already ended.
3 weeks later.
So after fermentation, we need to harvest the wine. So absence of the bubbling in the fermentation lock indicates end of fermentation. So to harvest the wine, simply remove the fermentation lock and using a siphon tube and suction pump, draw out the clear wine. And we will transfer the clear wine into an aging bottle. So in this case, we use a small aging bottle. And the funnel fitted with cheesecloth can be used to filter the wine. Okay? Pwede rin po tayong gumamit ng mga mechanized or motorized pump with filter for more effective filtering of the wine. Yan. Okay, so fill the aging vessel to brim and tightly seal the container. Okay, yan. So hanggang brim, and in this case, we use a plastic piece of covering just to make sure that the vessel is tightly sealed. So the wine is now ready for aging. Aging normally takes at least 3 months. So that is needed for the development of the good characteristics of the wine. And then after the 3-month or 6-month period of aging, you can now harvest the wine to be ready for bottling. In some cases, racking is also done. So ano naman yung racking? So racking is para sa same as aging, but the purpose of this is to allow the sediments to form at the bottom of the vessel. In this case, we can clarify further the wine before bottling. So again, this is normally done kapag yung fruit mo is pulpy or kapag yung fruit mo ay mataas din sa mga polysaccharides such as pectin. So sila yung mga types of fruit na or type of fruit wines na matagal mag-clarify. In some cases, you can also add the pectinase, which is available commercially, to hasten the clearing or clarification of the wine before bottling. So for bottling and labeling of the wine, so it depends on the available types of closure and container that you have. Kapag closure mo is cork, therefore you need a corker. Kapag naman heat shrink na mga capsules, you need a heat gun. And after properly putting in the closures, we can now finally label the products. So the label depends also on you. So that is for the red wine. Ito naman meron tayo for bottling and labeling of our clear wine. So in this case, this is the mango wine. So what are the factors affecting alcohol fermentation? So first, the raw materials. So yung fruits na gagamitin natin should have high sugar concentration and enough acids. Although technically, pwede mo namang gamitin yung kahit anong prutas for wine fermentation, mas maganda na meron na siyang innately mataas sa sugar content for the yeast to convert into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Kapag kasi kulang yung ating sugar, the tendency is magdadagdag tayo na magdadagdag ng refined sugar. And it might dilute the native taste of the fruit that you use. So, it will defeat the purpose. Mawawala yung lasa ng iyong fruit. Also, we use the right strain of microorganisms. So, the wine yeast that you should use should tolerate high alcohol concentration. Hindi pwede yung konting alcohol pa lang, patay na agad yung ating yeast. The yeast that we use in our exercise, the Saccharomyces cerevisiae ellipsoideus, is highly adapted to high alcohol concentrations. And in our records, it can reach as high as 18% of alcohol before dying. Also, the fermentation temperature should be considered. Ideal is around room temperature, 20 to 25. Well, in Philippines, alam naman natin na medyo mainit, but don't worry because the Saccharomyces ellipsoideus can survive even in tropical countries and hence is suitable even in Philippine condition. Also, the oxygen requirement should be taken into consideration. Remember that the first stage of fermentation should be aerobic, so it will allow the yeast cells to multiply rapidly and therefore effectively ferment the rest of the fruit mass. And the second stage, which is the stage after you replace the cotton plug with the fermentation lac, it should be maintained at anaerobic condition. Okay? So the anaerobic condition will force the yeast cells to produce ethanol and carbon dioxide. And therefore, you will have the wine. Kapag napanatili kasi natin siya or iniwan natin siya na aerobic, the yeast cell will just convert the sugar into carbon dioxide and water. So, halos wala ka mapuproduce na wine. So, ayaw natin na. Also, the type of sugar is also consideration. It is suggested that we use refined sugar. And now we are familiar with the different steps and techniques in winemaking as well as the factors that can affect the wine fermentation. I will introduce to you some of the common problems encountered in wine production. First is the seasonality of the raw materials. So, as we all know, some of the fruits are only available when in season. So to address the problem with the sourcing of the raw materials, we can also use yung mga process na mga raw materials. For example, the frozen fruits or purees as well as concentrates. We can also use that as the starting material for winemaking. Also, we may encounter inconsistent quality of products. So this can be addressed by proper knowledge in the techniques in winemaking as well as the proper use of the equipment for testing. Also, the limited supply of wine bottles, seals, and closures. So, to address this, bago tayo mag-umpisa ng ating business, we must have a supplier na pwede mag-provide sa atin ng mga kakailangan nating gamit, such as these wine bottles, seals, and closures. So, in the next slide, I will present some of the trusted suppliers na meron tayo. Also, lack of proper quality control. This can also happen, lalo-lalo na kapag sa mga baguhan siguro na magbi-business. So, we must establish or know our process very well for us to establish the different quality controls for the consistent production of good products. And also, a lack of the technical know-how. This is already addressed. Part of addressing this is itong ginagawa natin na webinar on fruit wine making. So, ang mga sumusunod po yung ating mga listahan ng mga suppliers na pwede nyo din pong kontakin in case may kailangan po kayo sa inyong fruit wine business. First in our list is the Urban Island Winery Incorporated located in Taguig. So, we consider them as one-stop shop for wine production needs. And ito po yung kanila mga contact, telephone number as well as email address. So, maganda po sa kanila. Available po sa kanila yung mga equipments and supplies for wine production. Kasama po dito yung ating mga filtering machine, siphon, as well as different containers during and after fermentation and racking, as well as some of the ingredients. So, you may contact them for your needs. Other supplier po na posible po makatulong sa atin is si Good Sense Fruit Juices po. Sila po yung formerly known as Mapagmahal Foods. So, they sell fruit purees, juice concentrates, which we can also use as substitute for our raw materials in wine production. So, their contacts and address are as follows. And yun po nasa figure, ito po yung kanilang Facebook page. You can also contact them through their social media account. And yung next naman po sa ating mga supplier is the Zilco Pack Corporation. They're located in 11th Avenue, Caloocan City. So, they offer a variety of wine bottles naman to choose from. So, magaganda rin yung kanilang mga designs. So, you can contact them with their telephone number, email address, as well as their social media account as posted. So, yung last part naman po ng ating webinar is about the opportunities in fruit wine business. So these are the opportunities to wine manufacturers. First is the utilization of indigenous fruits, especially the underutilized and minor fruits. Lalo na po sa Pilipinas, napakadami po natin mga prutas na hindi gaano kakilala. So by processing them into something unique, such as fruit wine, we can not only increase their popularity but also its economic value. Also, the chance to showcase tropical fruit wines in the international market for variety of choices. Establishment of wine processing plant in areas or regions where raw materials are accessible. And also, with the increase or boosted wine business in the Philippines, we may also limit the importation of alcoholic beverages. So these are some of the challenges naman to the local wine manufacturers. First, the production of consistent quality products. So we can address this by the trainings like this, increase in awareness as well as in know-how noong wine processing techniques. Also, another challenge is the globally competitive product presentation. So, kailangan magkaroon tayo ng unique identity in packaging, in label, as well as in closure or seal. We may also opt to create some innovative products out of the alcoholic products. For example, kung nabalitaan nyo, meron tayong nabalita sa, I think kumari sa social media, na somewhere in Mindanao, they produce a probiotic alcoholic beverage, which is a probiotic beer. So, diba? It's very, very creative. It's very, very innovative. They have added a functional property to an alcoholic beverage. Willingness to work hard to establish a thriving business. So, ito naman ay talagang challenge po sa lahat ng mga nagbi-business. And of course, another challenge is to protect the natural flavor of the product. So, we can have an optimized step in the preservation of a unique flavor of the product. Gusto mo talaga siyang lumasa doon sa iyong wine. So, you can optimize be it in the extraction method, in the fermentation method, or in the formulation. So it's another challenge. More of the challenges to the local wine manufacturers include this task to identify the functional properties of the product. So meron ba siyang anti-cancer properties, anti-obesity? So we may do researches on our alcoholic beverages to see if these functional properties are present. Also, expand the cultivated area for minor but potential fruits for wine processing, as well as the utilization of byproducts from wine processing. And that's all for today. Thank you for listening, at sana po marami kayong natutunan sa ating webinar on fruit winemaking. Again, this is Ray Lascano of the Institute of Food Science and Technology, College of Agriculture and Food Science, UPLB. Maraming salamat po at magandang araw.